Yesterday, we covered offense. Today, we look at the position, or the side of the ball, that really was the potentially most improved through this draft. With our first three selections in this draft, we went defense. Then we went center. Then we went more defense. Then we went more defense. Essentially, we went a lot of defense in this draft, and we tried to shore up some holes on both sides of the ball, but the majority came on this side of the ball. One of the biggest openings we had was at safety, and that's because Vonn Bell left through free agency. We didn't bring him back, which means that we had to not only continue who we had at strong safety, but we needed to either draft or see if we can develop our current free safeties. So Braxton Yates was the man on roster, but we got him some competition in Vidal Grice. And Grice is going to be an interesting player as a whole, just because he's fast, he hits hard, he's good in coverage, just an overall talented player, and I'm excited to see exactly what he can do for us. But as of right now, there is no guarantee on the starting spot. As the preseason goes on, though, you'll see that it becomes a little bit easier. At linebacker, now that we're in a 3-4, Houston and Hastings are the two middle linebackers. I mean, Hastings basically played, he was a weak side backer in our old scheme, so him moving to inside is pretty much the same deal. It's not too different. He can still come off the edge and pass rush, but good player. And I think that makes us pretty set. That's why we didn't bring back Stephon Anthony. We have a lot of depth, though, at middle linebacker, with Christian Kirksey and Luke Brent back there as well. We have 4 quality coverage linebackers, and it makes things a little bit easier. I guess off-ball linebacker is probably the better term. At corner, Jocqua Fassitt is obviously the #1 corner on the team, and that has not changed. I mean, he's just been spectacular, coming off of his best season as a pro in his 3rd season. Now he's going to try to make that further step in his 4th season, just become that pure elite corner that we know he can be. However, there is one issue. We had a huge gaping hole at the opposite corner, whether it was Delvin Breaux, Trey Waynes, Kendall Fuller, Sanchez McNeil, it didn't matter. It was just a mess. And that's why we drafted Marshawn Lattimore in the end of the 1st round. That was a big, or in the middle of the 1st round, that was a big signing, or I guess draft pick for us, because of the simple fact that now we have young, quality corners on both sides of the formation. And Lattimore is absolutely going to be starting. Waynes has not shown enough to maintain that starting spot, and we're going to probably move him into the nickel anyway. On top of that, we have some depth in James Bradbury, William Jackson III, and we have now, something Sutherland. Good player, though. You know, he was an undrafted free agent, potential guy who was going to be a priority guy if we didn't draft him. And we took him in the late 7th round. So he's going to make the roster, probably not as a practice squad because he's a little too valuable to throw on there. If we carry 7 corners, it might end up being what we do because Devontae Short is more of a return man than a corner anyway. So it's really 6 corners and a bunch of safeties and different things like that. But in terms of the secondary situation, I feel pretty comfortable with Fassitt on the left, on the defensive right. So he would play defensive right corner. Lattimore would play defensive left corner, and then Waynes in the slot. And as our 4th, I think William Jackson III edged out Bradbury, but that'll be a very fluid situation depending on the matchups. In terms of pass rush, though, this is where things get a little bit interesting. So in the new 3-4, we have Nickel Shillings guaranteed as a starter after just an incredible season last year. But outside of that, we have a few holes to fill. After trading Cameron Jordan, we now have at least a little bit of a gap at defensive line in terms of pass rush. And I'll get to that in a minute. But Sam Moreland, in the 2nd preseason game, suffered a ruptured disc, I believe in his back. And because of that, we no longer have to worry about who's starting at free safety, whether it be Braxton Yates or Vidal Grice. Now, both of them are going to be starting because Sam Moreland will be out for at least the 1st month of the season, and we're not going to put him on IR just because he's such a valuable piece to our team that if he can get back to form and healthy, then we're going to keep him around and bring him back into the rotation. As for now, we'll have a rookie starting safety and a 2nd-year man starting at free safety. So it'll be interesting to say the least. But back to the defensive line. So we brought in Jaron Elliott, and we also drafted Wes Pitta to play opposite of Nickel Shillings. And in this preseason, while Elliott was fine, Wes Pitta was spectacular. To the point where I think he's probably earned a starting spot. By the end of the preseason, he'll have 6.5 sacks. The rest of the team, no one else has more than 1.5. I mean, he just dominated, and he dominated left tackles. Even if it was some backups, some starters, he was dominant continuously the entire preseason. On the defensive line, though, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We have Rankins, who's going to be starting at one corner spot, or one end spot, my bad. Up the middle, and then at the other end spot, we have 3 bodies for 2 roles. Victor Melvin out of Pittsburgh in his second year hopes to take that step forward. Barry Tanner, we signed him to a 3-year deal during last season or the year before, and he's a good player. I think, though, he's more of a nose tackle. And lastly, our first draft pick at number 7, we took Ace Tracy, who is a defensive end, 3-4 defensive end. And that kind of bodes the question of, is he going to be starting? And if not, I'm assuming Melvin would be, but who's starting where? Who's starting at nose? Who's starting at tackle on the outside? And the way I look at it is this. Victor Melvin's a better pass rusher than Barry Tanner. So in all sub-packages, Victor Melvin will be starting at nose. But in some of those other sets, I think we're going to see more of Ace Tracy and Barry Tanner up the middle and have basically Victor Melvin be a rotational player, kind of in the way that Leonard Williams was for his rookie season with the Jets. Just that role of throw him around, put him on any spot on the defensive line, give him an opportunity to get some plays in. So when someone like Rankins or Tanner or Tracy need a breather, Victor Melvin's going to be there to fill that role. And that's a really good thing to have. So overall on the defensive side of the football, I think we have a lot of really talented players. And I think we have a really good group moving forward. We have a lot of speed in the secondary now, especially at safety. Larimore is definitely fast. He does need to work on his coverage a little bit. He did, if you saw before, get beat by Mike Evans trying to be a little bit too aggressive. But that's a rookie mistake versus a top-tier wide receiver. So I can, cut him some slack there. Regardless, though, we now have the preseason coming to a close. I'll show you the statistics, and then we're going to take a look at some roster cuts on defense moving forward and what the depth chart and schedule is going to look like. Because this is going to be season number 5, and there are no more excuses. We have to win a playoff game. That's really all there is to it. No playoff win equals maybe a loss of job, as Vidal Grice just absolutely jarred that football loose. Leading the team in tackles was John Hastings. Grice had 20, Bradbury had 19. Tackles for a loss was Hastings. Melvin had a good preseason as well. Like I said, West Pitt 6.5 sacks. Crazy efficiency in the preseason. Made the most of it. And interceptions, 2, 1 for Larimore, 1 for William Jackson III. And that pretty much wrapped all that up. A lot of forced fumbles, 3 by Vidal Grice in the preseason alone, which is just crazy, and he recovered 2 of them. So Grice was on top of his game, and he's going to be starting at strong safety, leaving Braxton Yates into that really deep coverage just because he's not that good in man coverage yet. We signed Gavin Short to replace Trey Flowers because Flowers just didn't really have enough going for him into coverage, and he's a little too light to be playing interior for us. So, like I said, we're cutting Flowers, and that pretty much wraps up most of the cuts that we're going to be making. I wanted to have 3 of those guys. I think, yeah, RT Sutherland, yes. We're going to move DeAndre Britton to the practice squad, and we're going to keep Sutherland on the main roster with these guys. So we're carrying 7 corners, and we need to make 1 more cut. Did I move him to the practice squad? Oh, no, I did. Never mind. I did move RT Sutherland to the practice squad. And we're going to make 1 extra cut. We're going to cut Javonte Keys because he's too slow. He's not that good of a player. He's a decent special teamer, but there's a player who I was looking at who I'd rather have, and that player is Heston Minifield. And he's just a little bit faster, probably a better gunner, and I think that just gives us better opportunities on special teams. As for the depth chart, here we are. This is just the base for it. You can take a look at all of that sort of thing as I'm just talking. Michael Thomas remains in the slot. Rashad Maxey is the 4. Trey Laster is number 5. And I'm going to put Chance Hastings as that 6th wide receiver if need be. Edens will remain the starter, but Chance Hastings is number 2 on the depth chart. In terms of offensive line, Kraft at left guard, Krenzel at center, Ragland at right guard. That's a big one right there. And Roman Kalu at right tackle. On the defensive line, Ace Tracy will be starting at left end in the 3-4. At right end, it will be Sheldon Rankins. At DT, you're going to see some interesting... Actually, I have to adjust something real quick. Just going to add Victor Melvin to that rotation. I think I'm put him at number 2. That way, yeah, he's the backup for everything. Yeah. So DT, it's going to be Barry Tanner with Victor Melvin right behind him, and then Fudge back there. Schillen starting at left outside backer. Jaron Elliott is the backup across the board for the edge rushers. Houston and Hastings with Kirksey as the third. Pitta will be starting. Jaron Elliott, like I said, the backup. After that, at corner, it's Marshall Larimore, Jocqua Fassitt, Trey Waynes, Bradbury, and William Jackson. So Fassitt stays to his side. Braxton Yates will be starting at free safety, and Vidal Grice will be starting at strong safety. Obviously, our kickers and punter is going to be the same. Lutz and Moran, 2 very good players. Our goal is 11 wins this season. And the first game of the season is against Mr. Hurricane's San Diego Chargers. The Chargers are coming off of a Super Bowl victory. So taking them on week number 1 is definitely going to be a challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you expect for us in season number 5 in terms of record. I'm Moonlightswami. I'll be talking to you guys later. Peace!